Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I know it's half term for a lot of you, but thank you for attending the webinar anyway. Today, as you're aware, we're going to be talking about identifying and analysing skills needs locally. So we have today our Business Development Manager, Will Cookson, who is joining us to do this presentation. And hopefully it will be very, very fascinating. I'm looking forward to it. If you have any questions, please make sure you put them in the question box on your control panel, and then we'll try and get to them at the end. So without any further ado, good morning, Will.
Good morning, Debbie. So this is our first economic development focused webinar of 2019, and welcome to everyone that has joined us today. As Debbie said, please feel free to add any questions in the box in the control panel, and we'll come to those towards the end of the webinar. What I want to focus on today is really around the announcement that government made at the end of last year around skills advisory panels. And it really looked at the role of skills advisory panels and made it clear that the issue of skills shortages must be understood and addressed at local level. You'll see on our website we did a blog piece about this and went into some detail about that. Now, skills advisory panels, for those who aren't aware, are said to be all about bringing together local employers, skills providers, to pool knowledge on skills, labour market needs, and to work together to understand and address key local challenges. And to underscore that point, there's funding that's been allocated to each panel to analyse their local skills needs. In this webinar, we'll look at the kind of granular labour market insight that can be used to analyse the skills needs in your area, how you can use this to analyse how they can use this analysis to support your work with other local stakeholders, and also the challenges that come with using those sources of data that have been recommended. Bear with me 1 second. So the roles of skills advisory panels, I won't go through all of this. Firstly, I'll just say that the acronym that we've got here is not one that I've invented, it's one that exists. So they are referred to as SAPs, which is slightly unfortunate. SAPs essentially will help mayoral combined authorities, Greater London Authority and LEPs fulfil their local remit to understand their current and future skills needs and labour market challenges. So there'll be local partnerships aimed to strengthen that link between public and private sector employers, local authorities, colleges, universities, all those usual stakeholders that you'll find around a local enterprise partnership environment. Now, SAPs will reflect the geography of the local industrial strategies. We've done previous webinars on the localization of industrial strategies, but essentially the SAP will be the local body, will be linked to the local body leading on the area's local industrial strategy, which will often be the LEP, in some cases mayoral combined authorities, and obviously the Greater London Authority. Now, why is this important? Why is it so important to understand skills needs? Essentially, that comes back down to the responsibility that comes for making decisions on how large amounts of public money is spent, and how important it is to have a solid evidence base that underpins those big decisions that need to be made locally. Right, the guidance that came out, along with the mandate that the skills advisory panels have to identify and analyse the specific technical skills needs within its local area, they also, and obviously the guidance that was given around the role that the SAPs have, there were also details given and guidance given in regards to an analytical toolkit, so what approach to take to analysing data, but also some advice and guidance in regards to the types of data sources that you can draw from. So essentially what we're looking at here is the start of that guidance document, and you'll see that it identifies the ONS annual population service over here on the right of this table. And I thought it'd be useful to look at how this can be used to understand skills demand and labour supply by sector and occupation. So if you go into NAOM, which many of you will have done, what we're looking at here is a screenshot from NAOM, the annual population service survey even, looking at residential analysis for Cambridge and Peterborough Combined Authority, which is one of the mayoral combined authorities. And we're specifically looking at Fenland and South Cambridgeshire for science, research, engineering and tech professionals. So this is a 2-digit SOC, which is is as granular as the annual population survey will go to, but it's critical for understanding a key sector in that area, which will be around science and technology. Now, if this was QI, for those that watch it, the buzzer would probably sound at this point, because the more observant of you will have noticed that here we're looking at residential data. So it's looking at the place of residence. But what we really need to look at is the place of work, if we're looking at skills demand. Who lives in a place and a location is not who works there, and therefore not reflective of the actual local skills demand from employers. There are a couple of other things that we can see here as well on the table. So you can see here we've got figures for 2015 to 16, 16 to 17, 17 to 18. You can see that those total numbers jump around quite significantly. So in that middle year, that middle period, they jump down to 36,500. You can also see that there's some points here where there's an estimate and therefore an exclamation mark, because there's not sufficient, so the sample size isn't sufficient to give data. So as I said, this isn't really what we should be looking at. We should be looking at workplace rather than residence, which would be here. So we've got workplace analysis. We're looking at the same data set. Again, figures are jumping around a little bit. One of the challenges there is that the number, obviously for 2015-16, where you go across, you can see there's insufficient data, or there's a challenge with that, and it's been suppressed, and therefore you don't have that information. Also, we're looking at a 2-digit level here. So we're looking at, basically we're looking at SOC 29 and 25 respectively, but we're trying to understand the demand for science, research, engineering and technology professionals. And we'll come back to that, because obviously there are, well, for those that you're aware, with standard occupational classifications, SOC classifications, 2-digit is quite high level. And there you can also see that when we get down to a local level, the data can be quite variable. So missing values are in there. So, for example, if we want to find out about programmers in South Cambridgeshire versus other parts of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, it's not at all helpful. Now, that's not to say that NAOM isn't helpful. It's got lots of data and lots of questions. We use it at EMSI. Some of the data we use some of that data as an input on our own work to model and estimate, but it only gets you part of the way. The challenge is to bring different data sources together to shed light on these questions, which is exactly what the guidance that SAPs have received around data sources is alluding to. But obviously the challenge here is getting a sufficient level of data at a local level to give you an accurate picture that you can be assured of, to support those conversations that you need to have with local stakeholders, such as skills providers. I want to take a minute to talk about EMSI's data, because there is a difference here. And I've alluded to this already, and I won't go into loads of detail on this, but essentially EMSI has a data set on the labour market that goes back to 2003, and this goes down to a 4-digit level for standard industry classifications and standard occupational classifications. That's for every city and district in Great Britain. So each economy is described in terms of the 586 industries and 367 occupations, and the number of jobs held by each, but also understanding the presence of each of those industries and occupations at a local authority level. We also bring in job posting analytics. These are essentially, it's a real-time data source. So whereas the data that I've talked about there under our local granularity, that's updated annually, job posting analytics is updated in real time, essentially updated monthly. This provides qualitative insight on recruitment activity by employers, and most interestingly, in regards to the issue we're talking about today, the skills requirements. So what qualifications are they asking for? What particular skills are they looking for in terms of hard skills and soft skills? I should also say that we make labour market projections. So as I said, the data set goes back to 2003, but we can make projections going forward to 2027 within our tools. That's from a bottom-up level, so that's looking at local authority level upwards to regional and to a national. That's for 4-digit SIC codes, standard industrial classifications, and they're projected on the basis of what's happened historically, looking at 3, 5 and 8 year trends. Strength Finder I won't go into detail on. There are other webinars which you'll find on YouTube, or send me an email if you'd like to know about that. But essentially it's a tool that we've developed, or a report that allows economic development functions to really understand the strengths, opportunities and risks within the labour market looking forward and historically, and it gives key metrics in regards to GVA, job growth, location quotient, and etc. It's useful in terms of understanding the way in which industries are growing or contracting at a local level. And as I said, there are previous webinars on that. What we're looking at here is I wanted to look at the same type of data that we're trying to get to through NOMIS, but to ask the same questions using our Analyst tool. Essentially what we're looking at here is we're looking at a comparison between Cambridge and Fenland within that Greater Cambridge, Greater Peterborough area. And you'll see here that we're looking at that 2-digit standard occupational classification, the SOC code for science, research, engineering and technology professionals. So quite high level. And what I'm trying to illustrate here, if you look at the number of jobs using those 2018 figures, you'll see that there's a huge disparity. So there's a large number of the jobs, and the skills that will be required for these jobs are required in Cambridge, whereas if we look at another local authority area within the Greater Cambridge, Greater Peterborough patch, we look at Fenland, significantly less. So it jumps from 10,500 down to just over 1,000. And you can see there that you can also start to look at year-on-year growth. And we can also see the annual openings. Those will be new jobs that are required within those areas. You'll also see the monthly unique postings. Those are the number of where we would previously alluded to the job postings data that we can use in the analysis around that. That's a number of job postings. And obviously you've got the median hourly wages there. So that gets us so far in terms of understanding. But if we want to understand, if we really want to understand the particular job role and occupation that sits below that, for example, if we want to look at programmers and software development professionals, which we know is very prevalent occupation and a skills need that's going to be required within the Greater Cambridge, Greater Peterborough mayoral combined authority area, then we probably need to go down to a 4-digit level, which is what we can see here. And then we can start to look at specifically jobs by as they would probably be advertised and as we would understand them. And definitely when we're talking about skills needs, the more granular information we can get on occupations, the better, because it means that we can start to look at the specific skills required for those specific occupations, rather than looking more generically at the type of skills that would be required for science, engineering, and research professionals, which will vary depending on the occupation. So again, you can see significant difference in regards to Cambridge and Fenland, probably not that surprising. What it does show, though, is that you need to be able to get below the LEP level. You need to be able to get down to a local authority level. And you need to be able to then do that at a 4-digit level as well, because then you start to get meaningful evidence that you can use to have those conversations with your stakeholders that would also be present on the skills advisory panel. I also wanted to show you the 4-digit standard occupational codes that we can look at, classifications even that we can look at within Analyst, and really get an idea of, okay, if we look at the occupations that fall under that higher, let's say, science, engineering, research professionals, let's look at the proportion of those occupations that we have in South Cambridgeshire, for example, another key part of that economy. And you can see here that biological scientists and biochemists, when you look at the location quotient, i.e. the proportion of those the proportion of those occupations at a local level, you can see that it's 8.25, so it's 8 times what you would find on the national average. Really key. If you go all the way down there, the second from bottom, programmers and software development professionals, 2.87, really significant occupation for them locally, or 2.86 even. So essentially almost 3 times what you would find nationally. I'm going to move slightly away. So we've looked at official government data sources. So we're essentially, what we're doing at EMSI is we're using a very similar data sources, but we're modeling different government structural data sources together within our tool to be able to understand what's happening at that local level. That allows us to model out suppressions and to ensure we're building an accurate picture. Really important data, but then I also alluded to the kind of qualitative data, or not kind of, it is qualitative data that we can draw from job postings. This is really important as well when we look at what's happening in a local area. So again, we're looking at that Greater Cambridge, Greater Peterborough, the mayoral combined authority area. And what we can see here is we can see recruitment activity. And really what we're trying to understand here is for software development professionals, what activity is taking place. And you can see here that there are significant amount of unique postings, so this will remove duplicates. We've got data set going back to 2016. We can also look at how long those vacancies are being advertised for. So the average would be 30 days. It's 35 days. So they're being filled. They might need to be advertised for slightly longer than the average. Not too significant, but those vacancies are being filled at present. But you can also see, interestingly, that the recruitment activity really varies. So Fenland, as we saw previously, low demand for that skill set. Cambridge, South Cambridgeshire, Huntingdonshire, quite really significant demand. Within the job postings, and I talked about this earlier, it's really interesting to look at the hard skills that are being requested from employers. So this is qualitative data, but really useful in terms of conversations with skills providers. So we can see here, if you look at those top 4, these are postings where, and they're in order. They're asking for software engineering, they're asking for C++ programming language, C as well, and Java. So those are the 3 programming languages that are really being requested. But then you can also see C# is in there, Python is in there, and the list would continue on. I've condensed it here. What it does give an idea is, particularly in fast-moving industries such as the tech sector, it helps you to keep track on what employers are requesting, and therefore what skills providers should ideally be training local people to have those skills to be able to take advantage of those local employment opportunities as they arise. So in summary, well, what I would like to state, because it could seem like I'm questioning the value of NAOM, it's a really good data source. ONS population survey even, very useful data source, and one that we do use. We use it as an input on our own work to model and estimate. There are challenges with it though. The challenges with it is, can you get down to that granular local level? And can you get right down into the individual occupations to be able to isolate and identify the growth or decline in those occupations, and therefore the related demand for those skills within the workforce? So the challenge is to bring different data sources together, and we looked a bit at that. We looked at some of the data we have around occupations within our Analyst tool, but then we also looked at job posting analytics and how that can provide some quantitative and context in regards to fast-moving changes within recruitment activity and within those industries. MZ Analyst, and I'm happy to speak to you individually about this if you should wish, but essentially what I want to get across is we have a set of both real-time data and traditional labour market information, going from those same data sources or similar data sources to the ones that were in the guidance documents that came out around the SAPs, around data sources. But essentially, Analyst, it does a lot of the modelling. There are pre-populated reports in there that means it's easy and quick to access that information. The challenge for SAPs that are bringing in an analyst that has to work through those data sources and model them together is that's a time-consuming exercise, and will they get to the level of granularity that we already have at MZ? As I mentioned previously, do make contact to explore how we can help you to better understand your current, future skills needs and the challenges of working with labour market insight in your area. Happy to have conversations, as I am at the moment, with many local enterprise partnerships and mayoral combined authorities. I should probably just check at this point whether we've had any questions. Debbie, have we had any questions?
No, we're fine. Just a query on whether or not the slides will be shared, and of course they will be shared in your follow-up after the webinar. So that was all.
Absolutely. So we'll share the slides and we'll also be posting this onto YouTube. I'm right in saying that, aren't I, Debbie?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, now what I would also, I've already said this, so we'll skip past it, but essentially let's have a conversation if you'd like to find out more. What we went through today was really just a snapshot of the type of labour market insight that we provide at MZ through our tools like Analyst, which we looked at, and I did a quick compare and contrast with the data sources that are available to the public. I would also, and it'd be remiss of me not to mention this, and Debbie would definitely say something if I didn't, MC's National Conference in 2019. This is taking place in Birmingham on the 16th. And the 15th, we've got a drinks reception, which you're all welcome to. And on the actual 16th of May, we've got the whole day. And it's really focused on defining, developing, and delivering the skills of the future. So completely in line with what we've been discussing today. We'll be having attendees. We usually get a really interesting mix of attendees from across the education world, further education, higher education, local authority economic development functions, people from the local enterprise partnership world, and also some employers as well. So we end up with this really interesting mixture, but very much focused with speakers delivering really interesting content on the skills of the future. You can go to our website, and also I'll send out a link with the slides for anyone that wants to register, and you can click through and have a look at the agenda.
Yeah, that's great, Will. Yeah, just to say that we are limiting places. We want to keep this as networky and as personal as possible. It's great to actually be able to have all the main contacts from sectors in the same place, so that we can actually do something about the need for the skills of the future, rather than just talking about it within our own sectors. In other words, education or local authorities or whatever. It's actually right across the board. So it's a very powerful conference. And as I said, we are keeping the numbers limited. So please make sure you do sign up quite quickly to get your place. Plus, we've kept the price down very low. It's only £50 for a delegate. So just go onto our website and have a little look. So thanks for that, Will.
Thanks, Toby. Okay, and thank you to everyone that attended today's webinar. And do make contact if you'd like to find out more. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.